It took me over 1,000 hours to use a Scythe in Elden Ring, and this is the worst mistake I made since freshman year, and no, I absolutely will not be supplying the context to that statement. The Grave Scythe has been on my make-a-build list for quite a while now. Any weapon that has innate bleed buildup can easily make for a powerful build. That bleed is paired with a weapon that has a suitable slashing speed and a shape that any Bloodborne player would love to see once again. The critical and backstab kills are the best the game has to offer, as the Tarnish performs a beheading motion on human-sized enemies. This weapon, to the surprise of no one, scales best with Dex, and essentially requires a keen infusion. This infusion was slapped on with the Sword Dance Ash of War for this build. I've seen Sword Dance used before, and it behaves a tad differently than I expected. The Ash is much slower than it appears, needing an adequate startup time. But after the startup frames, the dual slashes are fast and cover a deceivingly long distance ahead of you. There also is a follow-up downward slash, but I would reserve that move for massive windows of opportunity or finishing blows. Now, this is Journey 30 on this character, and there was something I had been neglecting to do, and you are likely making the same mistake. I pride myself in making good use of my consumables. I often use many freezing pots and kukris in my builds, but a look at my inventory revealed well over 150 Aeonian butterflies and over 300 root resins. I know you have a lot of them in your inventory too, John. I then wondered to myself, what in the world was I saving them for? A consumable that never gets consumed isn't of much use to anyone. That's why I decided to incorporate rot grease and occasionally freezing grease into the build. This additional status buildup made a great build an amazing one, and I highly recommend you put your crafting materials and consumables to use also. To accompany Sword Dance, I used the Shard of Alexander to justify using it far more often than I should have. I also had on Erdtree's Favor Talisman so I could light roll with my build. This build was overall quite simple stat-wise, with 60 Vigor, 15 Mind since Sword Dance is cheap, 37 Endurance, 12 Strength since I was two-handing and the requirement for the Scythe is 17, and 80 Dexterity. Intelligence, Faith, and Arcane were all left at base levels. Anyone looking to put to use all the crafting materials rotting away in their inventory, or to use a rather underutilized weapon category in the game, should consider whipping out the Grave Scythe.